beautiful sunrise this morning. It started out a little cool and overcast. Now, even though I'm a local lad, today I'm walking a route which I've done about a dozen times during my life. Starting out at Clara Drive, it's 3.5 miles long and takes me up to Calverley, down to Apperley Bridge and finishes off at Greengates. Clara Drive is a result of an ambitious plan back in the 1850s to turn much of the ancient woodlands of Calverley into a residential area for the rich mill owners and wool barons. It didn't quite take off as the then landowners, the Thornhills, had hoped, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. At the head of Clara Drive, you enter an area of woodland which, to the informed eye, tells one that this area is anything but ancient. In fact, I can well remember when this section of the wood was basically treeless. Instead, the area formed a large compound of half-derelict prefabricated concrete huts, amongst which I and my childhood friends would often play Japs and Commandos. The huts weren't too dissimilar to those which can be seen at Apperley in Durham. Now, my old dad told me that it had once been a training camp to billet troops who would then take part in the D-Day landings, but at the end of the Second World War, it was used to accommodate former Italian POWs awaiting repatriation, some of whom helped recommence the construction of the Ravenscliffe housing estate, which had been halted at the outbreak of war. In the mid-1950s, some of the buildings were used for the commercial purpose of firework production. Health and safety was low on the list of priorities, and on the 19th of June 1957, there was a large explosion, resulting in the death of 3 employees. Following an inquiry, production ceased. Today, very little remains of the camp, which once played an important role in our nation's struggle to maintain its freedom. On exiting Calverley Woods, at the southern end of Thornhill Drive, you pass the rather picturesque lodge which once formed part of the prospective 1850s development. Dating back to the 12th century, the tranquil grounds of St Wilfrid's Church offers a welcome respite and a moment of quiet contemplation, even for a non-believer such as myself. From St Wilfrid's, it's down Car Road to Calverley Cutting, passing the Calverley Horticultural Society on the way. Calverley, first mentioned in the Domesday Book and for a good 800 years afterwards, was primarily an agricultural village. In 1754, Sir Walter Calverley sold the village and lands to the Thornhill family, whose estate still owns large parts of Calverley to this day. This was the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and it wouldn't be long before Calverley took advantage of the rise within the rapidly growing wool and textile industries. With the village being situated between Bradford and Leeds and overlooking the scenic vistas of the Ayr Valley, in the 1850s the Thornhills developed a scheme to transform Calverley Woods into a select and exclusive residences for the rich wool and textile barons. The old trackway, which meandered gently down through the ancient woodland from Calverley to Apperley Bridge, was replaced with new roads that favoured the prospective development. This proved unpopular with local people and the business community, who regularly used the Leeds and Liverpool Canal for the transportation of goods and produce. As a compromise, Calverley Cutting was created. However, this too proved unpopular due to the steep gradient. If you wanted to get rid of Grandad, all you had to do was send him on a chore down to Apperley Bridge. He would probably get down alright, but getting back up, well, that's a different tale. Apperley Bridge takes its name from the bridge that spans the River Ayr, which was itself built in the latter part of the 16th century. Early in 1643, during the English Civil War, Sir Thomas Fairfax went on the offensive against the Yorkshire Royalists. Having assembled a force of 9 troops of cavalry and dragoons, 1,000 musketeers and 2,000 clubmen, he marched from Bradford, crossing Apperley Bridge to attack Sir William Savile at Leeds. The Georgian Dragon. There's been a tavern on this site since the days of the Vikings. Back then, it was built around an old oak tree. As a young lad, I can well remember the trunk of a large tree existing as part of the structure. Oh, and don't be fooled by the date. This is the new extension. The Leeds and Liverpool Canal, built between 1770 and 1774, was a motorway of its day. Now, during the past 20 years, Apperley Bridge has seen a great deal of urban development, which outweighs the social and structural infrastructure that would support such a development. Now, I'm not against progress, but I viewed this development as unwise and lacking in real foresight by both the local council and the original developers. Not unlike the Thornhill development of the 1850s, this development was profit-driven as opposed to being of any real benefit to the local area. Now here's my dichotomy. I condemn a large modern housing estate built on former greenbelt land, but lament the passing of an old factory which over the years has in one form or another provided much needed employment within the area. I remember this as Martin's Dry Cleaners. It's where my mother worked, and where I and the children of other mothers would have fish, chips and mushy peas on a Friday afternoon in the canteen as we waited for them to finish work early. Over the years, the factory has had many name changes and uses, but it started out life as the Brysilka factory back in the 1920s. Incidentally, here in this picture dated 1929, you can just make out a structure at the bottom of Calverley Cutting. This was Thornhill Lodge, known locally as the Needle's Eye. I remember it well. It was demolished in 1965. From here, it's a short walk up the hill to Greengates, where I take a final respite within the grounds of the Memorial Garden. This is a beautiful, picturesque and thought-provoking walk, brought even more to life when you know some of the history of the landscape through which one travels. Hope you've enjoyed.